We are the Gambling Databases research team, a group dedicated to delivering in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape.
In each country's specific report, we explore key aspects such as local regulations, taxation, player experience, operator conditions, and of course, emerging trends.
Our goal is really to provide a clear, data-driven understanding of how the gambling industry functions within each market and what makes it unique.
And for today's analysis, we are turning our lens toward a location that has arguably the most complex reputation in our industry.
Yeah, people call it the Wild West of iGaming or sometimes the sandbox.
We're talking about Costa Rica.
Exactly. And looking at the data we've pulled for this report, it's just fascinating because it feels like a place of massive contradictions.
Yeah.
You have the stable democracy, an OECD member, a tropical paradise known for ecotourism, and yet it's the operational base for hundreds of online casinos that exist in what looks like a total legal vacuum.
It really is a paradox. Usually when we sit down to analyze a market like, say, Ontario or the UK, we spend 90% of our time dissecting the regulations.
Right. Compliance, advertising limits, all of that.
Exactly. But with Costa Rica, the conversation is inverted. The appeal for operators isn't about the regulations that do exist, it's entirely about the ones that don't.
And that is the hook, isn't it? The immediate contradiction our research found is that Costa Rica is one of the most popular jurisdictions on the planet for setting up an online gambling company.
The volume is staggering.
It is, but, and this is a massive but, the country technically doesn't issue online gambling licenses.
That is the core paradox.
Mm-hmm.
If you fly to San Jose and go looking for the Costa Rican Gambling Commission for online sites, you're not going to find one.
It just doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. There's no specific legislation that governs online gambling at all.
Which just sounds insane to anyone used to the European or North American markets. I mean, how can you have an industry moving million, maybe billions, without a regulator?
Well, that's the thing.
What are these companies actually holding? If there's no gambling license, what piece of paper is hanging on their office wall?
You're hanging up a data processing license.
Data processing. That sounds remarkably boring for a casino business.
It sounds corporate, and that is exactly the point. This is the loophole, though I'd argue it's less of a loophole and more of a constitutional feature of Costa Rican law.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does that mean? You see, the legal system there operates on a principle of liberty. Anything that is not explicitly forbidden is permitted.
Okay. So
Okay.
in the eyes of the Costa Rican legal system, as long as the gambling, the actual betting, is happening between a server in Costa Rica and a person physically located outside of Costa Rica,
Then the government doesn't see it as gambling in their country.
they don't. They see it as computing.
It's computing.
Precisely. They view you, the company, as simply processing data for a foreign client. You're processing ones and zeros.
And it doesn't matter what those ones and zeros represent.
Nope. Whether it's a spreadsheet, a weather report, or a spin on a roulette wheel, the local municipality doesn't distinguish. To them, it is all just data export.
So these licenses are not coming from the national government then?
No, not at all. They're issued by local municipalities. It's a business permit, a patente commercial.
So the same kind of permit you'd get for opening a coffee shop or something.
Exactly. A call center, a web design firm, a shoe store. You go to the local city hall, you pay your fee, you show them your lease, and you are allowed to process data.
That is a huge distinction from a place like Malta, where you have the MGA breathing down your neck. But there has to be a catch. You can't just do anything you want.
There's one massive catch. We call it the golden rule of Costa Rica iGaming.
Okay.
You cannot, under any circumstances, target Costa Rican residents.
So the locals are off limits.
Strictly. This is the line in the sand. If a Costa Rican citizen logs onto your site and places a bet, you are no longer processing data for export.
You're now conducting illegal gambling inside the country.
And that's when the Ministry of Public Security gets involved and shuts you down.
So it's a 100% export-only industry. You're packaging the service and shipping it overseas digitally.
That's it. And this creates a really stark contrast with the land-based sector in Costa Rica.
Right, because there are casinos in the hotels.
Yeah. And those are completely legal. They're regulated under Law Nod 9050. They pay specific gaming taxes. They have oversight, inspections, the works.
But the online world is totally separate.
Totally. It
Yeah.
sits in this gray zone where as long as the product leaves the country, the local government basically looks the other way.
It's just wild that such a huge industry is built on what feels like a semantic technicality. It's not gambling, it's data. but operators obviously love it. Our report gives Costa Rica an operator ease score of 6.5 out of 10.
Which is pretty high for a gray market.
So why is everyone rushing there?
Speed and cost.
Okay, let's break down the costs first. We know jurisdictions like Curacao are getting more expensive, and the Tier 1 licenses can run into six figures just to get started. What's the price tag in Costa Rica?
It is dirt cheap. I mean, if you look at our data, the annual cost for that municipal license is somewhere between 3 and 5,000 US dollars
3 to 5,000 for the year.
for the entire year.
That's nothing. I mean, that's less than the monthly coffee budget for some tech startups.
It's negligible. You have some legal fees to set up the corporation. You need to pay for your office. But the actual permission to operate is the cheapest in the world.
And then there's the speed.
Right. In a regulated market, you could be waiting 6 months, a year, maybe even longer. You've got probity checks, software testing, financial audits.
Background checks on every single shareholder.
Of course. In Costa Rica, you can be live in 3 to 5 weeks.
3 to 5 weeks. That's barely enough time to get the office furniture delivered.
It's incredibly fast. You incorporate, rent an office, apply for the permit, and you're in business. For a startup that's bootstrapping, that speed to market is everything. You don't have 12 months of runway to burn waiting for a stamp.
You need cash flow now. I have to imagine this attracts a very specific type of operator.
It does. And recently, it has become a real haven for the cryptocurrency sector. This is probably the biggest shift we've seen in the data over the last, say, 18 months.
Yeah, the report calls it the crypto factor. Why is Costa Rica so special for crypto casinos?
It goes right back to that data processing definition.
Yeah.
Because the license is so vague, it doesn't have strict rules on what constitutes banking or funds.
Right, whereas a regulated market has strict anti-money laundering controls, source of funds checks.
And requirements to segregate player funds in specific bank accounts.
And Costa Rica just doesn't have that.
Legally, you're processing data. If that data happens to be a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, the municipality doesn't have a framework to police it.
So if I want to run a casino that only accepts crypto, no credit cards, no bank transfers, Costa Rica doesn't stand in my way. Not at all. In fact, they allow 100% foreign ownership. And here's the kicker on taxes. There is no gross gaming revenue tax. No GGR, tax on international income. Wait, hold on. They don't tax the gambling winnings.
Not the international revenue, no. You still pay the standard corporate income tax, which is around 30%, on your local profits.
Okay, so on money you make and keep in the Costa Rican company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a sophisticated operator will structure things so the revenue collection happens offshore, maybe in a zero-tax jurisdiction. The Costa Rican entity is just a service provider that gets paid a fee.
So the bulk of the profit never technically touches Costa Rica.
You got it. It's a very efficient structure.
Okay, I see why the score is a 6.5. Cheap, fast, crypto-friendly, low tax. Sounds like an operator's paradise. But I feel like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. If it were this easy, everyone would be doing it. I mean, major public companies like DraftKings or Bet365 would be setting up shop in San Jose, but they're not.
No, they're definitely not.
So what's the catch? Why isn't everyone there?
Because of what our report calls the banking nightmare.
That sounds ominous.
It is the single biggest operational hurdle. We've established the government lets you operate. But the banks, that is a whole different story.
They won't play ball.
Not at all. Local banks in Costa Rica, like Banco Nacional or BCR, will generally refuse to open accounts for gambling entities.
So you have the license, you have the office, but you can't open a simple checking account.
Correct. You walk in with your data processing license. The bank compliance officer sees online gaming in your business plan, and they show you the door.
Why? What's the risk for them?
They rely on correspondent banking relationships with U.S. banks, and they are terrified of losing those relationships by touching unregulated gambling money.
So how do these companies even pay their bills? Or their staff?
They have to get creative. They use offshore electronic money institutions, EMIs, or they run everything through crypto. But this creates a huge friction point.
Especially if you want to take credit cards.
Exactly. If you're trying to accept Visa or MasterCard from players, you are going to have a very hard time.
But why? Visa works everywhere.
Visa works where there's trust. The credit card networks use a merchant category code for gambling. It's 7995. When a transaction is coded 7995, the bank checks the jurisdiction.
And when they see Costa Rica?
They see a country with no gambling regulator, and the transaction is almost automatically declined. It looks like fraud to them.
So your approval rates would be terrible.
They're awful. Maybe 30 or 40% compared to over 90% in a regulated market. You're losing half your customers at the checkout.
Which is a massive hit to revenue. That explains the heavy shift to crypto then. It solves that payment blocking issue.
It does, but it also limits your audience to only people who hold crypto. There's another risk factor we highlight in the report: reputation. A data processing license holds, and I'm quoting our report here, zero regulatory weight internationally, none whatsoever.
So if I'm a player in the UK and I get ripped off by a Costa Rican site, and I complain to the UK Gambling Commission.
They'll tell you, we warned you.
Yeah.
And the Costa Rican municipality, they don't care. They handle business permits, not fair gaming disputes. There is zero player protection.
So it offers no legal shielding.
None. And this is a critical point for the operators themselves. Some people think, oh, I'll go to Costa Rica, hide out, and I'll be safe from the U.S. Department of Justice.
Right, the classic offshore haven idea.
That is a dangerous myth. Costa Rica has strong extradition treaties with the United States and the EU. We mentioned this in the critical risks section. It's not a safe haven.
So if you're breaking U.S. law from a server in Costa Rica,
Costa Rica will cooperate with Interpol and the FBI. Being unregulated is not the same as being invisible.
it's a Wild West, but the sheriff can still come and get you.
That is a perfect way to put it.
So let's talk about the physical reality. We mentioned you need an office. Is this just a P.O. box situation?
No, the municipalities usually check. You need a physical space leased or permanent, and a legal representative who is physically in the country.
Okay, so if you have to be there, is it a good place to run a tech business? I mean, beyond the laws, does the infrastructure hold up?
Surprisingly, yes. This is where Costa Rica really shines. The tech infrastructure is quite robust, especially around San Jose. The internet is reliable. We're seeing fiber and even 5G rolling out.
And the report mentions mobile penetration is off the charts.
Yeah, about 130%, so more than one device per person. It's a very connected society.
What about talent? If I have to hire staff there, am I going to find good people?
You can. We call it the Intel effect.
The Intel effect.
Yeah, Intel set up a massive plant there years ago, and it really jump-started technical education in the country. The literacy rate is almost 98%. You have a mature, educated workforce.
So a lot of operators are actually putting their support teams there.
Yes. Customer support, fraud teams, IT teams. The staff speaks Spanish, often English. They're tech-savvy. It's a great place to run the business side of things, even if the employees are forbidden from using the product they're supporting.
What an interesting dynamic. You have this highly literate workforce powering a product they can't even touch.
It is. And that really brings us to the verdict. We've looked at the pro speed, cost, crypto, and the cons: banking, reputation, no legal shield. So who is this actually for?
Right, in our report, we break this down into a yes bucket and a no bucket. Let's start with who's in the yes bucket.
The yes bucket is for the risk takers. If you are a bootstrapped startup with under $50,000 in capital, Costa Rica is your sandbox. You simply cannot afford to get started in Curacao, let alone Malta.
It's the garage startup phase of iGaming.
Exactly. And the other clear yes is for the crypto-exclusive casinos. If you don't need traditional banking rails, this is paradise.
Okay, and who should run in the opposite direction? The no bucket.
Anyone with corporate ambitions. If you're a public company or you plan to be one, you just cannot touch Costa Rica. Your compliance department would have a heart attack.
So what about that stepping stone theory? We hear a lot. I'll start in Costa Rica, save money, build my database, and then apply for a real license in a regulated market. Does that work?
That is a very, very dangerous game. We argue in the report that this can actually be a trap.
A trap? Why? Wouldn't a regulator want to see that you have experience?
They want to see compliant experience. If you go to the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement and say, hey, I ran a massive unregulated casino in Costa Rica for 5 years, they don't hear experience.
They hear history of operating in the black market.
It's a massive red flag. It stains your probity record. You could find yourself locked out of Tier 1 markets forever because you spent too long playing in the sandbox.
So it's a launch pad, but it could also be a trap. You need to know that you might be stuck in the gray market for good.
Exactly. You have to know where you're stepping next.
It really seems like Costa Rica fits this very specific, almost incubator-like niche in the global ecosystem.
It does. It's where you go to test an idea when you don't have the money to do it properly, and that serves a purpose. Innovation often happens on the fringes.
But you have to go in with your eyes wide open?
Absolutely. You are trading protection for freedom. You save money on the license, but you pay for it in banking headaches and reputational risk. So, to summarize our analysis, Costa Rica is cheap, fast, and flexible. But it comes with that high banking friction and very low regulatory credibility. It really is the Wild West.
Hmm.
And that brings me to a final thought. We've talked about how this data processing model has worked for years. But since 2023, there have been whispers in the Costa Rican government about formalizing regulations.
Right, because the government isn't blind. They see the money flowing through those servers.
Exactly. Billions of dollars are flowing through Costa Rican data centers, and the state isn't collecting a specific gambling tax on it. They get the municipal fee, sure, but they're missing out on the GGR tax.
And in a post-COVID world, every government is looking for new revenue.
They are. So the question is, how long will this window remain open? Is this loophole sustainable? If the government decides to flip the switch and regulate, this entire sandbox could disappear overnight.
The Wild West would get paved over.
The sheriff usually tames the town eventually. It happened in Curacao, and it'll most likely happen here too.
Well, that brings us to the end of this analysis. For the full text of this and other country reports, visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com. We have the full breakdown there.
Yeah, check out the section on banking workarounds if you're seriously considering a move.
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.